Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jessica Abernathy, and with me today is Trisha Montgomery, and you are listening to Pets Are Family. Hi, Trisha. How are you doing today?
Hey, Jessica. How are you? Long time no see.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Good. What's shaking
Don't,
in your corner of the world?
not much at all.
Not
No.
much. Yeah, I can't believe that. Tell me something good. I want to know something good. Tell me what's going on with
Uh,
you.
I don't know. What do we got going good?
I'd say quite a bit, Miss Jessica.
I,
Quite a bit.
we do. Yeah, we
We're
got a lot going on.
We do. Jessica, so first of all, I mean, right now you're very cold in Chicago. We're still warm here in Florida. Got a lot of like mixture of temperatures going on there, right?
I don't have a sweater on.
You do not have a sweater on. And
So it's a little
we did
warmer.
we did talk about, a couple of days ago, we were talking about sweater weather, and I sent you that meme, and I hope you got it and enjoyed that from Saturday Night Live, that little thing that I sent you. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all good. So we're talking about pet cancer. Specifically, we're
We
talking
are.
about let's talk about pet cancer, and we're talking about and dedicating much of our Pets or Family podcast in the late October, November to Moose's March, and that is our charity for Pets or Family. And when you go to petsorfamily.net and moosesmarch.com, you'll find information on there and a QR code, and you can sign up for a pretty big webinar that we're hosting called Let's Talk About Pet Cancer in honor of November being Pet Cancer Awareness Month. And we are so proud to welcome today Steve Dale. You and I have both known him in different capacities, but he is an accomplished speaker, an author, a behaviorist. He has been nominated, or he has won the award, the Accomplished American Veterinary Medical Association Award for his excellence in media. He is incredibly well known. He hosts Pet World on WGN. He's part of a nationally radio syndicated show, and it is just our honor to have him on our show today. He's going to be moderating our Let's Talk About Pet Cancer webinar on November the 2nd at 7 p.m.
Yeah. I've known Steve for a long time. I used to take care of his pets a long time ago. I told you that. So
Yeah. Isn't that funny how it's just, we have such a very small world and there's 6 degrees of separation. And for as large an industry as the veterinary profession, pet industry, and animal welfare world, we all know each other in some way, capacity, shape, form, or the other. I find that fascinating. There's always like,
yeah,
oh yeah, and what capacity did you know them in, and the different, and the things that you find out. I find it fascinating.
7 degrees of separation, man. 7 degrees of separation.
Is it 6 or is it 7? I thought it was 6 degrees of
7.
separation, but you're saying 7. Okay. Well,
I always thought it was 7. Well, I grew up with 7, so.
Well, I have less degrees of separation, and you and I have that too, because you and I have known each other for quite some time, even before we got reconnected with each other through Canine
Right.
Fix Club. Yeah, and then you said,
Mhm.
Don't you know me?" And I said, "I don't think so. I think I
No.
tried to play it off a little bit, but I'm, struggling to find, like where, how, you look really familiar, but maybe you can clue me in."
I guess I look a little different. I guess in my head, I don't look any different than I used to, but I guess I do. I don't know. So,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you lose 200 pounds. It's, I think so.
and grow out of, 200 pounds and no mohawk. I just don't understand why that I look different.
I think which, Mohawk 200 pounds, Mohawk 200 pounds. I think, yes, you do. I've seen pictures of you. You look completely different. Who knew? Who knew? And you've
Yeah.
walked past your ex-husband before and he hasn't recognized you.
I have not walked past him, but I think if I did walk past him, he would not
Okay.
recognize me.
Okay.
I
Wow.
don't think he would,
Yeah. You look beautiful. You look beautiful. Well, I would say let's bring on Steve Dale and let's talk about pet cancer.
All right, let's go get him.
The one, the only, the amazing, my friend, Steve Dale. Thank you for being with us on Pets or Family.
It's my pleasure, who I've known for a very long time, right?
Well, a very, very, very long time. We were just talking, Steve. We've known each other for 30 years. I know.
And the amazing thing is you're only 32 years old. So I clearly was your babysitter, apparently. I don't know.
You were. We just want to tell people that, Steve, I was with the Chicago Veterinary Medical Association as their public education director. You were in radio, and you were really, you'd always had this beautiful interest in pets and people. And you were really just, starting in your career. And I look at what you've done and within the pet industry, the veterinary profession, and in animal welfare. Tell us a little bit about you, how you got started, and for the people that I can't believe that no one knows who you are, but people that may not know who you are, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh gosh, how about if I talk about this, and that is how the human-animal bond kind of pushed me into going to do the pet thing kind of full time. So I was covering entertainment for the Chicago Tribune, USA Today, which was then a fairly new publication, and People Magazine out of Chicago. A great deal of my job was simply following Oprah wherever she went, and where she was, I was typically. But then at one point in time, we adopted a dog, a rescue dog. They didn't have that term back then, but that's essentially what she was, a dog by the name of Chaser. And Chaser was afraid of everything. And I do mean everything. So we would take her outside, and we live in a busy part of Chicago. So buses would go by, people would go by, other dogs would go by. The good news is everything in her would come out. So house training this 10-month-old dog, who really wasn't house trained, was kind of easy to do, because every time we took her out, she was so terrified, but kind of sad, right? That she was so terrified. She also had separation anxiety. So every time I went to the bathroom to do what you do in the bathroom, she did the same thing on the other side of the door. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
And back then, the question was, do you even today, do you want to deal with that?
Right.
So help wasn't particularly available. Veterinary behaviorists didn't even exist at that point in time.
Right.
There were some dog trainers who did help me by giving me great behavioral advice. One was Karen Okura from the Anti-Cruelty Society. Another named Sis Frankel, who I'm not even sure is training dogs anymore. But I'm grateful and will always remember the help they offered. So eventually, with patience, with good advice, Tracer transformed this Pygmalion transformation into My Fair Canine. And I never thought necessarily that I could have a bond with a dog like I had with her, because we worked together, sort of speak, to get her through the other side, where she became a therapy dog, and the American Kennel Club good dog, what do they call it? The good citizen test.
Right.
So she passed that. And here she was, this great dog who was, you would never know if you just met her that she had all these problems way back when.
Yeah.
So we were also very lucky, but nevertheless, one day in an elevator. Have you ever been stuck in an elevator?
I have been, and it wasn't a pretty situation.
It what?
It was not a pretty situation. It was not.
Often, yeah, I hear that's the case.
Stuck in an elevator with me. Let's just put it that way. I would not.
So there I was in an elevator, and it's a very old elevator in a vintage building.
Oh, wow.
Which is where I live on the near north side of Chicago. So there we are, and I hear, and the elevator stops. and I press the alarm button.
Oh my God.
A neighbor comes out, and I swear you could hear the alarms wherever you were in America. And it was louder than an air raid siren, I think. And the neighbor comes out, a neighbor, and says, it's a condo building. A neighbor comes out and says, is there a question? Is there a problem? And I said, yes, I'm stuck in here. So call the elevator company. The elevator company's in a faraway suburb, and it's about 5 o'clock rush hour. So it was going to be a while before the elevator company could come out. And I just sat there as there was whining and crying and all this stuff going on because I was in an elevator with 3 dogs.
Oh my gosh.
Now, the good news is that I was going up and not going down.
Okay.
If you get the gist of what that means. Yes. So that was good. And the whining came from one of our dogs, actually. Named Lucy at the time, and the crying came from Boots Montgomery, our neighbor's dog, who we happened to be watching at the time. And Boots was barking and barking until Chaser, that's the dog whose story I was telling earlier,
right?
Who's now, I don't remember, 6, 7, 8 years old, is now calming the other dogs down.
Wow.
And I thought about the bond as I was just sitting there in the elevator with nothing else to do. I thought about the bond that I had with this dog. And I thought about it because I had been asked by the Chicago Tribune to write a syndicated pet column. And I didn't instantly say yes, because then all those other exciting things like covering Oprah, I just instinctively, I knew I wouldn't be doing that anymore. I would just be writing about pets. And as a journalist, you always want to be typecast. Well, 2 famous folks had given me advice. I thought of that advice about sort of specializing in what you love. Yeah. But mostly I looked into Chaser, her eyes, and I had a Lassie moment, I suppose, Timmy and Lassie. And I thought, you know what? If this dog means that much to me, dogs and other pets must mean the same to other people. Right. And if there's a way I can help them, then I'm going to do this. And that's when I decided to take the syndicated newspaper column. And from there, you met me. And from there, my life changed for the better in so many ways, because I have had an opportunity, I hope, to make a difference for so many pet parents. And incidentally, the elevator company did come out, and one by one, we hopped out of the elevator. First came Chaser, then came handing her, because she's a smaller dog, was Lucy. Then Boots Montgomery, who was growling at the rescuers of the elevator company. And, it's like the elevator company, do we really want to take this dog out? And they did. And and then finally myself. I mean, the dogs were just going to leave me in there, but they didn't. And the story does have a happy ending in that sense as well. And I take the elevator since all the time.
Oh, I love that story, Steve. What a beautiful story. You're an author, you're a speaker, you're an animal behaviorist, but you also, for this purpose, you lost Ethel.
Yeah. So, good, bad, or otherwise, I don't know. Yeah. I guess it's good that we typically outlive our animals. And eventually Chaser passed. Right. Chaser, that's the dog I was referring to earlier, who made that Pygmalion transformation. She was diagnosed with mast cell cancer. Dr. Shelley Rubin, who I know you know, a very talented, brilliant veterinarian in Chicago, the likes of which there may never be again in the city. He did the surgery and got everything, and she was fine for several years. And at the age of 15, she developed lung cancer, of all things, just pretty much overnight. It didn't happen overnight, I'm sure, but the signs of it. One day we woke up and she had trouble breathing, and the radiograph or x-ray showed instantly what it was. that's odd because neither my wife or I smoke. We're not even around secondhand smoke, or at least certainly if we are, the dog wasn't. But nevertheless, that is what happened. And that was tough. Other dogs subsequent to that, tough. One day, a dog by the name of Ethel, who was a mixed breed dog, a little bit of everything. She wasn't a Heinz 57, a Heinz 157, I think. Just a wonderful, wonderful dog who everybody loved. Had this unique look about her. Her coat was almost, especially when she was younger, like an African wild dog.
Wow.
She was very exotic looking. She was from Animal Care and Control in the city of Chicago. She was adopted as a puppy. A litter of puppies were dropped off. Happily, that doesn't happen hardly at all anymore. But this was now 20 years ago, maybe. Dropped off at Animal Care and Control. And I was called by a friend of mine saying, we have a litter of Australian Shepherds here, knowing I love Aussies. Yeah. Well, they didn't turn out to be Australian Shepherds at all, but that was fine. And she was just this great dog who was often literally stuck to me. I mean, if I sat down, she was not only at my side, she was a part of my side. One of those dogs, kind of like a Velcro dog at times. And one day, she was 13 at the time, just prior to the pandemic, actually, a few months prior. So it was 2019. She got up one day and now she's 13. She has had arthritic issues. Her spine was, so we called the veterinarian when we noticed she seemed to be bothered by it. Yeah. And the veterinarian said, well, give her some gabapentin, which she has had previously for the same issue, or what we thought was the same issue. She was just walking strangely. Yeah. And we did. And she would lay down and go to sleep. Gabapentin will do that, and 13 years old will do that. She was a somewhat larger dog, mid-sized / larger dog. So didn't think anything of anything at all until my wife came home from a shopping trip. Instead of running at the door to greet her, she ran at the door to greet her and then fell over, and inexplicably. Clearly, we knew something was wrong. We rushed her to the veterinarian. The emergency clinic quickly found out that she was internally bleeding from what is called, it's a blood cancer called hemangiosarcoma. And it was happening so fast that if we did not euthanize at that point, she would have bled out. The good news is these dogs, the best we can tell, while being uncomfortable and not knowing what is happening, which has to be scary, and dogs do get scared, they're not in pain. Yeah. I was in pain psychologically, and so was my wife. I called my veterinarian on the cell phone. I was kind enough to give me her cell phone number, and because we're also friends, and she said, I don't even believe it, but of course the x-ray didn't lie. I mean, that's what she had, and what was happening was the truth, and we hurried up to say goodbye, which we weren't ready for. This kind of cancer doesn't only happen in 13-year-old dogs. It's happening in 3-year-old dogs, particularly certain breeds, and unfortunately, to some extent, popular breeds, which means it happens a lot. Breeds like golden retrievers, Labrador retrievers, and others. Right. And there's no answer today. Now, the good news is that many organizations, including the Morris Animal Foundation, which is a nonprofit that funds research for a variety of things having to do with companion animals and incidentally captive animals at zoos as well, and is responsible for so much of what we know, a great organization, is funding studies. University of Wisconsin specifically is trying to figure all this out. And they're actually making some headway. It has become, for whatever reason, nobody knows, a fairly common cancer. 25 years ago, it was somewhat uncommon. Today, it is quite common. whether it's a genetic predisposition or what, I'm not sure anybody knows, although there is some of that and family predisposition, because as I say, it's happening in certain breeds more often than others.
Right.
My my sister's dog, they had a tumor removed out of his left leg 2 weeks ago, and we're waiting for the lab to come back. But I'm going to put it this way, we're 100% sure he has the disease you're talking about right now, because we're pretty sure he's a rescue, but we're pretty sure he's mixed with a lab. We're almost 100% sure he's mixed with a lab. And the vet indicated that he thought he has this disease, this cancer. So
that would be
waiting.
an unusual,
Mm-hmm.
that would be an unusual presentation of that.
Yeah.
What you suggest could be osteosarcoma or any number of other things, is what I would think. But what do I know? I don't know.
Doesn't hemangio present itself very suddenly? Because
yes,
I know some
Yeah.
Rhonda Siegel.
It's a very insidious cancer that, so on occasion, one of two things will happen. Either for another reason, an ultrasound is done,
right,
looking for something else, and they find it early. And in that case, surgery can be curative. Or if somehow the day before our dog had shown signs, or maybe early that morning, we figured out what was happening in some way and rushed her to the emergency vet, at that point, they could have done surgery. However, those surgeries at that point, where the disease has already begun to show signs, a cancer expert can tell you that the statistics, but the percent chances of success are iffy, and it probably will return. So we need to do better than that. And that is where predictive measures are helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm so pleased to tell you, and you'll be talking more about this at your event for Moose's March, which is coming up, that you can give us the details about. But there are now increasingly going to be, and one is like right here, ways to predict some types of cancer, including this one, with some statistical success. And that's huge. So if you could get it early enough before, and usually, so it's a blood cancer that usually resides or hits the spleen, but other organs can be involved as well. And surgery way early on, before there are signs, can be successful. Once there are signs, it can be, but then the cancer is likely to come back. And I'm not suggesting people don't do that surgery. I am just saying the success rates are just odd. Catching things earlier or preemptively is always beneficial. And for most dogs today, the story goes more like our dogs, or our dog did. You don't know what's happening. The signs, in fact, some dogs just present, that they're wobbly or whatever it may be. Something is wrong, but you may not be there to know it. Until you're at work, and you come home and the dog is not there, has died. And unless a necropsy is done, which is an animal autopsy, you don't even know why it happened. And that actually occurs
more often.
Kind of free. Yeah. Right. So this is how fast this can happen. So the good news with that is that, as I say, because it's quick, the dog isn't suffering for 6 months, like some kind of cancers. That's the case in human beings, 6 years, right? In dogs, it can be 6 months, where there truly is, we do all we can to prevent suffering, but frankly, there is. That's cancer, right? However, for this one, the good news is typically that's not the case, but the bad news, it happens so fast that there's no time for us to prepare. But moreover, it's increasingly common, and we're losing too many dogs of all ages, and this includes young dogs that aren't even at times a year old. So tell me about Moose's March.
Yeah.
And we can learn about, I just did a little bit. And by the way, I interviewed some folks about this, which will be heard on my WGN radio show, as well on my national radio show. So you can find that. I'll put a link on Facebook. There will be a link on my website, which is stevedale.tv. But tell us about Moose's March.
Steve, first of all, I just want to thank you for sharing your story. Cancer is something that is a devastating diagnosis, and then all too often we do find out too late. Moose's March is the legacy in honor of my dog Moose. Heart dog, cattywampus, just a hot mess that I had adopted from Paws Humane Society through Columbus Animal Care and Control. Came home from actually Talladega Raceway, and there had been some signs of just lethargy, and wrapped my arms around him, and then that was it. I found the 4 nodes and 3 other places, and it was stage 4. And it was, he was gone within 2.5 weeks. And
what kind of cancer was that?
It was stage 4 lymphoma cancer. And it just, he had a myriad of other health issues. He was heartworm positive. We don't really know his story coming from a rescue, but he was definitely chained outside, and there was some other conditions, but we don't know. There are so many things that we don't know about cancer, and I'm just so grateful that there is research going on through the Morris Animal Foundation and other organizations that are trying to find out more about this devastating disease. But the goal of Moose's March is to educate pet parents and to have an open discussion on this devastating disease and find out more, and then talk about early detection and some of the things that can be done for that. We're having this beautiful webinar on November the 2nd at 7 p.m. And Steve, you're going to be, I sometimes I say facilitating, it's not a wedding, you're moderating with some incredible experts. Dr. Thomas Butera of Volition Veterinary, the CEO, Dr. Rebecca Timmons, Kristen Werman will be on this panel. Dr. David Stansfield of Cooperative Care will also be, and I'll be there with you too, and opening up for a beautiful dialogue and talking about pet cancer. And as we know, November is Pet Cancer Awareness Month and really Cancer Month, and hoping to really shed light and awareness on this disease. And we do have a charity. We're a 501c3 organization, and we're really making sure that we're raising donations and that it goes to shelters, because as we know, oftentimes within the lower income areas, there are things that they cannot afford. And so working directly with shelters, we can provide these kits and tests to them, and working with Volition Veterinary on that, and working on different cases throughout the U.S. and helping pets and their people. And I'm just so grateful that you're part of this, Steve. And
well, what Dr. Butera will talk about is a new test that can actually predict lymphoma in dogs as well as hemangiosarcoma. And that's huge, So definitely, if you have a certain breed, you'll want to have that test done. Or if you just want to do a full, absolute routine, soon to be exam, you may want to have that done too, because it's not crazy expensive at all. So that's something to know about. And I'm excited about then other technologies that are around the corner as well. So we'll talk about all of that, as well as new treatments that are around the corner as well. So we'll talk about all of that. What day, what time, and also how do people get there?
So Steve, you're doing my work for me. So it is moosesmarch.com, and they can actually go to your website as well. I think you're going to be sharing that information on your pages as well. It is November the 2nd. It is a free of charge webinar.
Free!
Round of applause for the free, and it's open to anyone. All they have to do is scan that QR code. They can register for moosesmarch.com. That is November 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Steve Dale, I just want to have one last question. First of all, people get a hold of you again. And our last question for you is, we want to know how you make your pets feel like family.
I would not ask it that way. I would ask, how do my pets make me feel like family? Especially if you're talking about a cat, which we also have. So,
Miss Roxy.
The cat's name is Groucho. And Groucho, I don't know, if he was close by, I would show you. He actually has a mustache, and that's why he is Groucho. And also he hosts game shows and does funny movies, and has 3 brothers. One plays the harp. One plays the piano and has an Italian accent that doesn't sound like an Italian accent. And one kind of disappears halfway through, whose name is Zeppo. You never know where he went. So Marx Brothers fans will appreciate those comparisons, maybe.
I love
that. But our cat's name is Groucho. Our dog is now 15.
Wow.
15. Her name is Hazel. She's a animal assisted therapy dog who goes to Lurie's Children's Hospital with my wife in Chicago and helps kids to feel better.
Oh, Steve, I love you, and I love everything that you represent, everything that you do. As you know, I have been a big fan of yours. I'm always a massive fan of yours. You could spend your time with anyone. I want to thank you for taking the time to spend it.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I look forward to being a small part of Moose's March coming up.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, Tricia, that was entertaining, wasn't it? I mean, that was a lot to impact. I didn't know about Ethel, you know what I mean? And that was, first of all, I didn't know she was considered a cattle dog. That dog did not look like a cattle dog. But secondly, I had no idea. That's awful.
Yeah. Cancer, there's, it's a devastating disease. And hemangiosarcoma, just the suddenness and the devastation that goes along with that. At least, you say, would you rather, have a little bit of time, or is it better? I can't answer that, but I will say, I have heard so many stories of hemangiosarcoma. I've heard so many stories recently of cancer. And I think as you become more and more aware of things, cancer impacts so many. And I think it's 6 million dogs out of the 84 million dogs. And it impacts in senior dogs more. But as Steve was saying, hemangiosarcoma and the diagnosis in younger dogs, and just phenomenal and incredible that Volition Veterinary has come up with this testing for early detection. And exciting news going to be coming out in 2024. Right now it is for canines only, but there is some exciting news coming out in 2024 regarding some research in a white paper, and I think it's going to be a groundbreaking for pet cancer for all animals. Just interesting, just very interesting. And Jessica, that elevator story, was there a personal story that I think you told me about something earlier. What's the personal story that I think that you have related to an elevator with Steve? Is that right?
Yeah, I Steve forgot, but I've been stuck in Steve's elevator too. You know what I mean? Not as long as him. We did not have to call 911. But, me and the dogs also going up, got stuck in there for a good, I want to say it was 15, 20, maybe half an hour. But, you just sit there, and his elevator is small. I mean, it is small. I mean, his building is old. I mean, it's over 100 years old. That elevator, I don't know what we've done. It's got to be all the hormones we put in our food nowadays, but people must have been smaller back then, because that elevator was small. I also weighed a lot more back then, but those elevators are small. I mean, you could not fit 3 people in that elevator.
I've been stuck in an elevator when I was 10 or 11 years old. And it was a very harrowing experience for me, and one that has stuck with me. And recently, probably 2 years ago, and now I will not ride elevators unless someone is with me, and I will choose to walk up 50 flights, 100 flights of stairs before I ride an elevator. So for our listening audience, that is one of my, one of my fears, that and running out of toilet paper.
Well, you did not do well in the pandemic then. You were one of those that hoarded, didn't you?
Oh, no. Remember, I worked during the pandemic. We had no issues during the pandemic because I think I was one of the fortunate ones that got to work every single day of the pandemic because I was CEO for Paws Humane Society, and we were deemed essential employees. So we were not without anything. So yes, I was
an essential employee too, but I mean, you still could run out. The stores weren't selling it. You could run out of anything.
No, we made sure that and even if I had to borrow from Paws Humane Society, but yeah, so I'm deathly afraid. I will not ride up an elevator without someone being with me. If I have to wrangle a hapless stranger and smile at them, because I can often do that, I will not ride an elevator by myself. But yeah,
good to know.
Crazy.
Good to know. I know. That's really good to know. That's good to know, because I am not walking up 100. I am not walking up 100 stairs of flights with you, or 100 flights with you. Nope.
I will do that in a heartbeat. But I think going back to Moose's March, this is our charity. This is our passion project. And this is something that is deeply personal to me because I lost Moose to cancer, May of 2022, to stage 4 lymphoma. He was gone, unlike Steve and their pup, Ethel. Moose was gone within 2.5 weeks. And it is devastating. And we're here to talk about an open conversation about pet cancer. We have some beautiful experts and veterinarians who will be with us. Dr. Thomas Butera, I think I mentioned earlier, Dr. Thomas Butera, Kristen Worman, Dr. Rebecca Timmons, Dr. David Stansfield from Cooperative Care Organization, and Steve and I, and he's going to be moderating. And we're asking and letting people know about this, and anybody can participate in this, and sending your questions in advance to us as well, and participating in this webinar. It is free of charge, and it is open anyone, November 2nd at 7 p.m., Moose's March. And out of that grief and the sadness became a beautiful legacy to Moose and to his everything that he represented, and just giving an incredible thank you to Volition Veterinary and their team, Devin and Daniel, Sarah, and Dr. Thomas Butera as well, Dr. Tom Butera, as I'm trying to call him now. And thankful that we get this opportunity to do this and, really talking about early detection of pet cancer.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll be the one in the background helping everybody make sure everything goes smoothly. So that's my job.
So Jessica is she is like the technical person. She wrangles me sometimes. Well, I don't know what wrangle is the right word, but incredible supporter, and couldn't do what we do without each other. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm the back end. That's all I always say. I'm the backside of everything. So there we go. But all right, Tricia. Well, let's on that note, let's just wrap this up so that way we can get ourselves going. So I'm gonna say, how do you make your pets feel like family? And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Pets Are Family. You can find us on all the channels now. Yes, all of the channels now. So make sure you share us with your friends, your families, and your coworkers, and anybody that has a pet. Make sure you like us, give us your feedback, tell us if anything that you want us to talk about, all that fun stuff. You can reach me at Jessica at petsourfamily.net or Trisha at petsourfamily.net. Thank you for everything that you guys do, but make sure you like us, subscribe, check us out on YouTube. You can always see what we're up to. And we want to thank all of our sponsors, all of the people that support us. We love every one of you, and we can't thank you enough. And remember, check out Moose's March. We're doing a big webinar on November 2nd, and we want everyone to come. We're going to be talking about pet cancer, and we have some amazing folks that are going to be doing this webinar. So come check us out, moosesmarch.com, moosesmarch.com. Come check us out. Talk to you guys soon. We'll see you next week. Bye.